For today's practice, we are going to focus on a posture called Tadasana, which means the mountain pose. It's also sometimes called Samastihiti. Just depends on what style of yoga you happen to be practicing, which name it will be called by. So don't be confused if it's called Tadasana in one class, Samastihiti in another. Samastihiti means equal standing, which I'll explain in a moment. In Tadasana, you want to pay attention to a lot of little minute details because it is the basis for every other standing posture in yoga. So if you really get Tadasana very, very well and very integrated into your body, you'll find that all of the other standing postures will become much easier and make a lot more sense to you. So let's begin to break it down. We'll start with the feet. So typically in Tadasana, you want to practice with your feet together, big toes touching, insides of the heels touching. Now, if you have a condition, something going on with your feet, like maybe bunions or maybe something in the legs that it isn't comfortable to have your feet all the way together, you can absolutely do it with the feet more separated. You want to have your feet no more than about your fist width apart. So you can just put your fist between your feet and see if they're in the right space or not. Then you want to, if you have the feet separated, make sure that your feet are straight. Very often we tend to stand with our feet turned out a little bit, so you don't want that to happen in this case. So you're going to pay attention to the second toe. It's the one next to the big toe. So you're going to look at the base of that second toe and arrange your foot so that you're making a straight line from the base of the second toe back through the center of the heel. So for me, it looks about like this. It's going to look a little bit different for everyone because we all have very differently shaped feet. So that's why we base it on the second toe rather than saying the outside of the foot or some other alignment. So base of the second toe arranged so that straight line back to the center of the heel if you're working with your feet apart. Now, if you can work with your feet together, you want to bring your big toes touching and the insides of your heels touching. Then you want to take a look at your inner ankle bone. That's the one that I'm bumping together here. You want it not to be touching as mine are right now. You want to lift the inner arches and keep those inner ankle bones from not touching. When they're touching, it's a sign that you're allowing the inner arch to collapse. So basically, everything from the center of your foundation is collapsing down and you're not supporting yourself in your foundational center the way that you need to have a good, strong posture. So we want to lift up on that. And you'll feel the arches coming up. You may not be able to do it right away, and that's okay. It takes a little work, it takes a little doing, a little mind over matter. So with time and practice, you'll get it. So lifting the inner ankle bones up, feel that nice arch underneath you. From there, we're going to move up to the knees. We're going to lift up on the kneecaps, which is going to engage your quadriceps, which are these muscles in the front of your thighs. That's very important that you pay attention now to the knees. Besides lifting the kneecaps up and engaging the quadriceps, you want to check out the back of your knee. So what you want to make sure you're not doing when you lift your kneecaps up is jamming your knees back, especially if you have very flexible joints. This may happen. If you're not so flexible in the joints, you may not even have to worry about it. But just be mindful and notice, particularly if you do have very flexible joints, that this isn't happening. So I'll show you again. If I relax and I lift my kneecaps and engage my thighs and let the knees jam back, you'll see a bit of hyperextension in the back of my knee. And what I'm feeling in my body, and what you most likely would feel also, is a lot of tightness in the knee. We don't want the knee to be tight. We want it to be nice and open. So let it relax again. And then we're going to lift up on the kneecap, engage the thigh, and now I'm not jamming the knee back. So what it feels like now is a lot of spaciousness inside the knee joint, which is what we want to have, because then it feels like the energy is flowing from the top of the leg to the bottom of the leg and back up again, rather than cutting that energy off at the knee joint. So then we're going to move up to the pelvis. That's the next point to really pay attention to. Very often, what I see most commonly in most students is the pelvis tipping forward like this. So there's a little arch, especially in women. Men, you don't tend to do this as much, but sometimes it happens in men too. But women especially, we tend to tip. So one way you can check and find out if you're tipping your pelvis or you're setting it level is by placing your hands on top of your pelvic bones. So just feel around in there, squish around. There may be more or less flesh in there, so just dig around in there and find where the bones are. Find it in the front and find it in the back. If your pelvis is sitting level, you'll see that your index finger and your thumb are level. If you're tipping your pelvis forward and compressing your lower spine, taking your tailbone back, you're going to notice that your thumb is going to be a little higher up than your index finger. This we don't want, because over time this does create tension in the back because you are compressing in between the lower vertebrae, which is not a good case for your intervertebral discs because they don't have enough room to breathe and be nice and plump in there like they should be. So in that case, think of dropping the tailbone down and moving it slightly forward until you find your thumb and your index finger level with each other. Now, the other thing that happens less commonly, but it does happen some, is we tip the pelvis back. So we're curling the tailbone under, kind of like a dog when it gets scolded and they tuck their tail under and they whine. It's a little bit like that. So we don't want to do that either. In that case, you'll find that your index finger will be a little higher than your thumb. So then you want to let the tailbone drop and move just a little bit back. We're not going to move it too far back, but just a little, so that you feel nice and open here in the low back area. Now, so the next part we're going to pay attention to is your rib cage. Sometimes, particularly when we say lift the chest in yoga, we notice that the rib cage comes out. So the chest lifts, yes, but then we notice the upper back dropping. So we want to take care not to do that as well. So soften the front of the rib cage a little bit. So the chest and the back, upper back, are both lifting up. Then your head can sit right on top of your shoulders. Hands are by your sides. Let your palms just rest comfortably, facing slightly in towards your body. Sometimes I see people turning them forward. We don't necessarily need to do that. Just let the hands rest comfortably by your sides in Tadasana. Gonna let the fingertips, particularly the middle finger, you can think about it reaching down a little bit so you get some release and pull down, relax in the shoulders rather than letting the shoulders lift up. That's going to help them to release down. Now, close your eyes for a moment. Feel as if everything from your waist down is reaching down into the earth, grounded like a mountain. And then feel as if everything from the waist up is lifting through the top of your head. If you need to put one hand on the top of your head, go ahead and do that. So you can really get a good sense of where the very top of your head is. Imagine that's the peak of your mountain and reach up through it. So you sort of grow a little bit. Release your hands down. While you're here, take some nice deep breaths. Check in again, make sure that your toes are spread, that your weight is even on all four corners of both of your feet. Your kneecaps are lifted, your thighs are engaged, your pelvis is level, tailbone dropping and moving slightly forward, and you're lifting nice and easy up through the top of the head. So it should be easier to breathe deeply here now. So I encourage you to practice this posture any opportunity you get. Anytime during your day that you find yourself standing, maybe in line for lunch, maybe at the grocery store, maybe at the bank, wherever it is that you find yourself just standing for a while and having to just be upright for a long time, rather than just allowing yourself to go into your old patterns of slumping and slouching or whatever it is that you do that's going to make you much more tired by the end of your wait, try finding your Tadasana. If you feel uncomfortable being out in public and having your feet together, then that's okay. Stand with them apart. Looks a little more natural if that makes you more comfortable. That's okay. And apply all of the other principles of Tadasana or Samastihiti. And And notice at the end of the wait and at the end of your day, you may find yourself feeling a lot less tired, a lot less exhausted, and you may notice lots of strengthening happening in your body that's going to support your daily life as well as your yoga practice. So you're setting yourself up for a really, really nice foundation for your yoga practice.